Welcome to Wednesday night, everybody. What's going on? Woo! I got my guy Jeremiah here. Glad you guys joined us. I think this is actually working, so we're super excited about that. Glad you joined us tonight. We've got some fun things planned. I have a bit of a quarantine confession, Jeremiah.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, so I really apologize. One of the things we like to do is we like to give away some snacks because we all know you're missing snacks the most on Wednesday nights. And a couple people actually won some last week, and I gave some away, but I didn't give the others away. And so, Diana and Gavin Junis, I owe you a big bag of candy. It's been sitting in my car. I just didn't drive out to your house yet. I will do that within the next couple days. So I apologize. Quarantine confession. But it's going to happen. It's coming to your house, and you'll probably get extra things because you've been so patient. So thank you for that. We do have some things to give away tonight, but we have to be real about this quarantine thing. Jeremiah, you have any quarantine confessions?
Well, nothing as bad as you, but I am growing some facial hair. Yeah, the camera does not lie. If you can zoom in a little, this is 2 weeks of hard work.
I think it's there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it
takes a lot.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully some of you are growing some sweet long hair. That's what you do in quarantine. But keep it long. That's okay. And if you can grow facial hair, that's a fun thing as well. So we are grateful you joined us tonight. We got some fun things planned. Just so you know, over the next several weeks, I don't have any tonight, but we're going to have some senior videos over the next several weeks. Our seniors, man, I love our graduating class. My son happens to be one of them, but we have several great seniors graduating this year, not the way they wanted to end high school, but we're going to honor them, remember them. They're going to give you guys some inside pointers, some good things to know about high school, maybe some things that didn't go so well. So we'll have those over the next coming week. So looking forward to that. But we're going to start tonight with some worship.
Let's do it.
Here we go. Last week we tried to do it, but apparently you couldn't hear. So we're hoping you can hear tonight. And I've been practicing my guitar. Actually, Jeremiah's guitar. Yeah. I've been practicing it. So here we go. We're going to give it a shot. You guys ready? You got to sing loud. This is important. So wherever you're at in your home, sing loud, okay?
Yeah. What song are we singing? So maybe they can pull up the lyrics.
Oh, yeah. It's called it's called Good Grace. I remember singing this one on Wednesdays, and you all would sing crazy loud. So I thought this would be a fun one. Something to remember and bring a little hope. So here we go. Children of
salvation. Our salvation is in his blood. Jesus, light of heaven, friend forever, his kingdom come.
There we go. Awesome singing. Woo! I hope you all were singing out loud on that one. It's a powerful song. We do need to know something, and I don't have the comments, so my guy Elliot's going to help me here. Is it too loud? Is there too much guitar? Probably. Is Jeremiah's voice too loud? I mean, let us know. We're going to try to do one more here. We're going to give it a shot. Here. Okay. This one we tried to do last week, but apparently we stood like this the whole time. We're frozen, so
Hopefully it's a little more successful this
here, we're going to give it a shot.
It's called Waymaker. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, lifting every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are.
Yeah, amen. I am a hack, but our God is really good. He does make a way. A lot of people are frustrated, and rightly so. People are sad. People are worried. People are fearful right now. But we know we can cling to Jesus in this time. He's trustworthy. He's making a way. He's doing things when we don't see it. I've seen a lot of good things come out of our lives. So grateful you're joining us. We're gonna keep moving forward tonight. But Jeremiah, thanks so much for letting me borrow your guitar.
No problem. Can I have a capo there too, actually, so we don't forget?
The capo?
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. There you go,
Thank you
Derry.
guys for listening.
And singing, hopefully. Awesome. All right. Well, we are starting something tonight that is a little new, and actually the rest of our student ministry year will be focusing on this. And our last series is going to be called Sound Bites. These are things, these are phrases, these are sentences, shorter phrases that really are things that have made a difference in our lives. And when I say our, I mean youth leaders. So I took a poll of some youth leaders and I said, what are some mantras, we call them? What are some phrases that have kind of stuck with you throughout life and helped you change and develop and become a better person, help you maybe become more disciplined, whatever it is? What are some things that have stuck with you and you remember as you go throughout life? And so those are what we're going to talk about. I don't know about you. Are there any that you can think of right now, any mantras that you have, that you've heard of? One, I don't think I'll talk about this one over the next several weeks, but one that I think about actually every week is simply this: the time you're given is the time it takes. That's a harsh reality that I live in. The time you're given is the time it takes. I'm like a lot of people. I'm a procrastinator. I wait to do things, and then it's like, oh shoot, I only have a few hours, and it's just like I remind myself, hey, the time you're given is the time it takes. Do it well. If it means you got to stay up, whatever you got to do. So that's one that sticks with me. I don't know about you. Maybe you can put some of these in a comment. Youth leaders, I know you probably have some really good mantras, some phrases that you kind of wrap your life and your mind around that stick with you. And tonight I'm pretty excited. One of our youth leaders, Adam, who's one of the youth leaders for the 7th grade guys, he gave us ours that we're going to talk about tonight. I think it's profound, and it comes straight out of the Bible from Romans chapter 12, and it's simply this: don't conform, be transformed. Don't conform, be transformed. This comes right out of Romans chapter 12, and I'd invite you, if you have your Bibles at home, would you open it up? Romans chapter 12, we'll read verses 1 and 2, and they're critical, such an important passage in the Bible. And we're going to put that up on the screen right now so you guys can follow along. But here's what the Apostle Paul says. I'll try to get my face out of the way. All right, he says this. He says, "Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." Some of you have heard this before. It's a popular passage in the Bible. That first word is key. It says, therefore. We're in the New International Version here. Some translations say it a little different, but a better translation is therefore. And it hinges upon everything that was spoken before that. So Romans 1 through Romans 11 was really, Paul lays out the whole case of the gospel. It's powerful. If you have time, I would encourage you to read the book of Romans. He explains who we are as people and how we're broken, and we're stuck in our brokenness and our sinful patterns. We've talked about this before. We sin because we're sinners. We're sinners because we sin. We make choices that we don't even agree with in our own consciences. There are things that we say we're going to do and we don't do. There are things we say we're not going to do and we end up doing, right? This is who we are as people. And so Paul talks about, hey, we're broken. All people have fallen short of God's glory, and yet God sent his son Jesus to save us. And he lays out the gospel message, and it's all a free gift of God. So he says, therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercies, in view of all that God has done for us, to give yourself to God, to worship God through your life. So saying it simply, it's like this: Our faith is lived out as a response to all that God has done for us. We are accepted and loved by God, not by what we do, not by what we don't do. We're not accepted or loved by God because of any of those things. We're accepted and loved by God simply because we believe and we trust in what Jesus has done for us. That's it. That's the gospel. And here's the cool thing about the gospel. You think, oh yeah, I believed that when I was young, or yeah, I understand that. That is the same. That's how you grow throughout all of your life as a Christian. It's not just the beginning. It's all of your life. How do you become a more committed follower of Jesus? By understanding the gospel. That is what he did for us, and we live our lives as a response to what he did for us. This is the truth of the gospel. So therefore, since God did all that for us, now we give our lives to him and we worship him. I don't know if you've ever thought about that whole thing of worship. What do you think worship is? This isn't necessarily one of our questions tonight, but I'd love for you to comment. What is worship to you? What do you think worship is? A lot of people think worship is like, raising your hands and we have music like we just sang. Usually it's a lot better sounding than what I just played on the guitar, but I'm learning, okay? No, worship we think of, oh yeah, worship's cool. I love singing. Some people don't like singing. They think it's kind of weird. They're not sure what to do, and they just kind of look down. We think worship is through song a lot of time. Actually, Paul hits the nail on the head here. He's like, worship is really offering yourself to God. Worship is giving worth to God and who he is, giving yourself to God. So think about it this way. When you obey, you are worshiping. So this is going to sound funny, but when you actually choose to listen and obey your parents when they tell you to clean your room or pick up your stuff or put away your dishes, when you choose to follow them and obey them, that's actually a form of worship to God. Or when somebody chews you out or somebody says something mean or somebody does something horrible to you, instead of responding to them the way that you think you should, but instead you respond to them with grace and kindness, man, that's actually a form of worship. How you obey God, how you follow God, how you listen to God, how you trust in God, that's a form of worship. Isn't that awesome? So that's how we worship God. It's how we live our life. It's how we treat other people. It's what we ascribe worth to. So here's my first question tonight. And for this one, one second. Oh, our good friend, the cheese balls came back. Here we go, right? Who doesn't want cheese balls? I don't know if you've been having these in quarantine, but I've been eating a whole lot of stuff in quarantine, way too much. But so I will promise to get this to you. Here's our first question tonight. I'd love for you to comment, and then my good friend Olivia is gonna help us. All right. So here's the question: What are you the most willing to sacrifice for right now? What are you most willing to sacrifice for right now? Think about this for a second. What is something you actually spend more time sacrificing? As you're thinking about that, middle school, high school, Steve, sports was everything to me. I would spend whatever time it took to get into shape, to do whatever I needed to do so I could be a better teammate, so I could be a better wrestler, a better baseball player, a better soccer player. Those are my sports. I would do whatever it took. That's what I was willing to sacrifice for. So the question is, what are you willing to sacrifice for most in your life right now? What are you willing to sacrifice for most in your life right now? Paul would tell us, and I want you to be honest, you don't have to, maybe your friends, that's a really good thing. Whatever it is, what are you most willing to sacrifice for right now? That is kind of a form of worship. Worship is whatever we put in our lives and we ascribe worth to. Some people are like, man, I worship sleep because I think sleep is the best thing ever and I give my best time to sleep. That's a little weird. No, I don't know what it is, but whatever you ascribe worth to, that is what you're worshiping. And if that gets in ahead of God, then we've got a problem, right? What we ascribe worth to. So as we guys are thinking about that, Paul would tell us, no. When you give yourself to God, that is a form of worship, and that is the best form of worship because that's what you were created to do. So pretty awesome. So Paul says, therefore, because of all that God has done, we want you to give your lives to God as a response to what he's done for you. Then he goes on with this powerful passage of Scripture, powerful verse in verse 2, and he says, don't be conformed any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Don't conform, be transformed. Don't conform. Think about conform for a second. It means don't copy. Don't be forced into a mold. When you conform, you're a copycat. You become just like everyone else. We all have done this before, right? We all have. I remember my senior year in high school. This is kind of embarrassing. My senior year, I certainly had my own path. I had my own friends. I could figure out my own trail. I thought I could think on my own, but then I became friends with this one guy named Tim. And he kind of pulled me away from my other friends. He was a good kid, I thought, but I started to talk like him. I started to be arrogant. I started to be proud. I started to be rude to my other group of friends. And for a period of about 4 to 5 months, I spent so much time with him, spending time hanging out with him. And we had similar interests and stuff, but we ended up talking like each other. I ended up actually liking similar music to him. I ended up actually dressing like him. Can you imagine that? Like, it's just weird. And so my friends finally got in my face one day, my big group of friends, and they're like, Steve, you're a jerk. What's wrong with you? You're just copying what Tim's doing. And it was such a wake-up call for me. We can do that as people, certainly by how we look and what we listen to, but this happens in our lives. We can begin to copy the behaviors and the patterns of other people. Who we hang around really is who we tend to be like, right? That's why it's so important to have good friends. So Paul says, don't copy the behaviors and patterns and customs of this world. No, he says, be transformed. Don't copy. So, okay, here's something to think about. Every one of us copies something else. We like a certain music because those people like it. We like this because those people like it. We dress like this because we think it looks cool because they look good in that. Whatever it is, we end up copying. That's fine. Paul's talking about the behaviors and the customs. So how are you living your life? What is your attitude like? How are you treating other people? Those are the things he's worried about. So don't copy the behaviors and patterns and customs of this world, but be transformed. I happen to think this popped into my head this past week. When you copy other people, there's nothing original about you at all. And I think there's really nothing original about any of us. I'm watching a documentary on Michael Jordan's life, who I think is the best basketball player of all time. Nobody has a prayer on him, especially LeBron James, even Kobe Bryant. Nobody does. Like, everybody wanted to be like Mike. But even Michael Jordan, even he copied patterns of other basketball players. Yes, he's the original, I think, best basketball player. But even he copied different shots and different techniques of other players. Everybody kind of is a copycat in that sense. When you choose to follow God, when you choose to give yourself to God, you're actually the most original you can ever be. You're not copying any person at all. You're actually copying Jesus, who is the Son of God. Think about that. The most original person you can ever be is following Jesus, because you're not following a man at all. You're not following a woman at all. You're following the Son of God. That is awesome, right? So don't copy the behaviors and patterns and customs of this world, but be transformed, Paul says. So I want you to think about this. Here's our second question. Think about this for a bit. We tend to copy different things from different people. One of those is music, right? I have this thing right now. I'm a little frustrated. I'm going to sound really old right now. I am really old, but I'm going to sound really old. What is with, like, copying music with this generation? Everybody is all about, like, meme music and copied music. Is there any real original music today? I'm just saying everything seems to be copied from something 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. Am I right? It seems like everything is copied. I have an issue with that, but that's cool. I think there's a lot of creativity and talent out there, but people just aren't using it in their music nowadays. I don't know. I love new music. I love to check it out, but it seems like everything is like a copy of something else, right? So here's my question for you. Here's my question. I want you, if your parents are somewhere in the house, or maybe you know this already, ask your parents, what was their favorite band when they were a teen or in college? What was their favorite band when they were in high school or in college? Ask them that, and then put that in the comments, and I'm going to have Olivia pick one of those out. So what was your parents' favorite band in high school or college? Just curious. All right, so for the first one who won the cheese balls, hey, Paisley Watson. Awesome. Well done, Paisley. Very cool. She said community and communications. And community and communication is something that really she would say oh my gosh, I forgot my question, is something she's willing to sacrifice for. I actually agree. I'm missing that so much. So, well done. Good answer. So, Paisley, I will drop those off. Luckily, I know you don't live that far, so that'll be easier. But this next question, what was your parents' favorite band when they were in high school or in college? Here's what we got. So we have the trifecta of sweets here. Snickers, right? And some old Easter, no, it's not old, it's just Easter candy. It's good. And then, to top it all off, we got the birthday Oreos, right? This is good stuff. So we've got some of those. I will drop those off at your house. Curious what kind of bands are out there that your parents were into. Just kind of fun to hear. All right, but Paul says, don't conform to the behaviors and patterns and customs of this world, but be transformed. Be original. Follow Jesus. That's the best, most original thing you can do. And he says, be transformed. Be transformed. What does this mean? It doesn't mean you change yourself. It's not like a transformer, It's like when you follow Jesus, he transforms the way you think, the way you live your life. So become what God created you to be, which is someone with a new identity based on what he says about you, not based on what other people say about you or what you think about you, what God says about you. You're loved and fully accepted, not on what you do or don't do, but on what God says about you. You're a perfect creation in his sight, and he wants to mold you and shape you and form you to become more and more like him. So be transformed. I love this. He changes us. He changes the way we think. Ben, could you put that scripture back up? So Romans 12, 1 and 2 says this. It says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. How do you renew your mind? What does that mean? I think it's fascinating. The way we get transformed is by how we think, that we begin to think differently. I don't know if you thought about this before, but everything in your life kind of comes first to your thought process. You don't just do things randomly. Typically, you've thought about it first. So we usually behave those things that we believe. So we believe them, which is your head and your heart, and then we begin to behave those things. We begin to act it out. We begin to live it out in different ways. So it's so critical that our thoughts are different, that we're transformed, that we renew our minds, it says. It says, then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is. Then we'll know what it is to follow God. Then we'll know what his will is, what it looks like to follow him. I love that. So be transformed. Your greatest weapon as a Christian is your mind. Think about that. Your greatest weapon as a Christian is your mind. God gave you this, and he wants you to have a transformed mind. That doesn't mean you're going to have a mind that's like me. That would be scary. Or a mind that looks like Pastor Dave, or even your youth leader. Definitely not the church lady. Definitely not your parents. You're going to have your mind. God created you with your brain and your thoughts in your mind. But he wants to transform them to be honoring to him. It's not going to look like somebody else's. It's going to be you with your individuality, your passions, your creativity, all your thoughts. And he's going to transform, he's going to mold it and shape it to become more and more like his son Jesus, the original. I love that. So be transformed. Don't conform, be transformed. Here's one way I think we have a winner for these next ones. Here's one way I think you can transform your mind. It's really about disciplining yourself, what you put in your mind. I'll tell you this. If you stream Netflix and YouTube and Prime videos and whatever you're watching, if you stream those 24 hours a day, that's probably what's going to come in your mind. And maybe there's good programs. There probably is. I mean, we're watching a good program right now too. But if you constantly put things in, I mean, that's what your mind is going to look like, right? So you've got to discipline yourself to put good things in your mind. That could be what you listen to. It could be what you read, reading good books. The Bible is one, but there are so many other good books that help with creativity and things like that. But what are you putting in your mind is so important, right? Think about what you put in your mind. All right, so here we go. All right. So who won the trifecta of sweets here was the Petties. I love it. And this just is fitting because they're actually one of my favorite bands too. Their favorite band was Weezer. Weezer is such a great, they're still a good band. I mean, they've been around for a long time. They're still a good band. So Petties, I will drop that off for you all. Girls, awesome job. Parents, good choice in music. But I'll drop those sweets off at your place as well. And Juna says, I make sure I'll bring the big bag of candy to your place as well. But awesome answer. So don't conform, be transformed. This is a mantra I want you to repeat. All right, we're going to do it together. Don't conform, be transformed. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Don't conform, be transformed. Say that again. Don't conform, be transformed. This is so important for us as Christ followers. Man, I'd love for you to grab hold of that, to memorize that, and more importantly, memorize Romans 12, 1 and 2. Memorize those scripture. Therefore, I remembered it in Old King James. Let's see if I can do it. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God, for this is your spiritual act of worship. Don't conform any longer to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. I still remember that. I remember that back when I was in high school. So good to have God's word in your heart. You want to be original? Follow Jesus. Don't copy the behaviors and patterns of this world. Be transformed. We're excited as we have this platform that you guys can interact. And so I hope you're going into your Zoom small groups right after this. We'll be back next week with some great senior videos so we can honor and remember and be challenged by them. And then in addition to that, we'll have another sound bite that we want you to wrap your minds around. So again, don't conform, be transformed. Hope you all have a great night. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good small group time.